My name is Molly, and I'm turning 32 this year. I work as a salesperson at a company. My husband's name is Mike, and we went to high school together. This year is our 10th wedding anniversary. We started dating in high school and kept our relationship going, even when we went to different colleges. But we always loved each other, so we got married right after we graduated. Even though we dated for a long time before getting married, we still love each other a lot. Shortly after we got married, our first daughter, Kate, was born. She's turning 9 this year. Now, I'm pregnant with our second child, and I'm excited about having another baby after a while. But this time, I've noticed some big changes in my health that I didn't experience when I was pregnant with Kate. I've been feeling sick and really tired, which is new for me. Maybe it's because I'm getting older and it's harder to bounce back from being tired, even after I sleep. Or maybe it's because of all the stress from work and taking care of Kate. I thought about different reasons for feeling this way, but when I took a pregnancy test from the store, it showed that I was pregnant. When I was pregnant with Kate, I didn't have any noticeable changes in my health, so I didn't even know I was pregnant at first. But this time, the morning sickness feels much worse. It's been hard to deal with while working in sales and trying to keep up with everything else. But I worried that if my sickness kept up, it would start affecting my job. So I decided to talk to my boss and take some time off work. When I talked about it with my husband, Mike, he seemed surprised and worried. He remembered how things were when Kate was born and was taken aback by how much worse my morning sickness was this time. He said, "Your morning sickness seems really bad this time. You should take a break from work for a while." I agreed, saying, "It's worse than when I was pregnant with Kate. I'm not feeling well at all. I need to focus on my health and the babies." I hoped that resting at home would help me feel better. But my sickness didn't ease up at all. It actually got worse each day. Even though I was at home, I couldn't do much. I spent most of my time in bed because I felt so sick. I wanted to at least do some chores around the house, but I couldn't even manage that. The smell of laundry detergent made me feel even sicker, so I couldn't handle it. At first, Mike seemed concerned, but lately he's been getting frustrated with me. He might be thinking, "Since you're not working, you should at least do the household chores, right?" I felt ashamed that I couldn't even manage simple tasks around the house. I felt bad for Mike, who was busy with work. Since then, he's been acting different. We used to hug every morning. But now things seem to have changed. Before, Mike used to give me a hug before heading to work. But now, he leaves without saying much. He's been really busy with work, often coming home late because he has to do extra hours. His job involves tasks like preparing documents, entering data, and making phone calls. Even though working extra hours was normal for him, he used to cut back after Kate was born so he could spend more time with her. We both used to work, and Mike wanted to help out more around the house to ease my workload. But lately, he hasn't been pitching in as much, and he's been doing overtime regularly. I think maybe me being on leave and us having less money coming in made Mike feel like he needed to work even harder to support us. Maybe he thinks I should do all the housework since I'm not working right now. But with my morning sickness, I just can't meet his expectations. One night, I finally gathered the courage to ask him for help. "You've been working so hard lately, especially since I've been on leave." "I'm sorry," I said. "Well, I have to earn more for the family, especially with the overtime," he replied. "I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I can't do much housework. The morning sickness is severe, and the smell of detergents and food makes me feel sick," I explained. "Really?" he asked. "Yeah, so can you please come home a bit earlier and help out with the chores? Once I feel better, I'll go back to work," I pleaded. Upon hearing my request, Mike looked clearly displeased. "Don't we have our own rules? I'm working hard, even with overtime, to support the family." I found solace in my daughter's reliability. Kate had grown into a kind-hearted girl, and I was genuinely pleased to see her willingness to help. Despite my efforts, the strained relationship with my husband persisted. He began leaving home early and returning late, with little communication between us. With the birth of our second child approaching, I started feeling anxious. Just when I thought our relationship was beyond repair, Kate shared some unexpected news. One evening, as soon as Kate returned from school, she said, "Mom, something's wrong." I recounted, concerned. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" I asked, worried. She shook her head, indicating no, and said, "No, but I feel sick." "What happened?" I inquired, trying to soothe her. Kate hesitated, biting her lower lip before finally speaking. Tears welled up in her eyes as she revealed. "On the way home from school, I saw Dad and Abby's mom kissing." "Really?" I exclaimed, shocked. Abby was a close friend of Kate's, and it was evident that she was deeply affected by what she had witnessed. Unable to control her emotions, she sobbed into my chest. "Oh my God, calm down, honey." I comforted her, holding her close. In that moment, my husband, whom I had considered irreplaceable, became an object of hatred because of his affair. Unable to forgive his infidelity, I vowed to seek revenge. But to do so, I needed to gather thorough evidence. While my husband was away, I began investigating. I searched the rooms and was dismayed to find a large number of receipts that I had never seen before. My morning sickness made it difficult for me to clean up around the house, but I was determined to uncover the truth. I was furious at the disrespect I felt. He thought he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. As I examined the receipts more closely, I realized they were for expensive branded bags and accommodations. Whose money paid for these? I gasped as I remembered something. Despite my pregnancy and morning sickness, I was determined to confirm the truth. It had been a long time since I left the house, and going out like this was rare for me. Feeling unwell, I made my way to the bank, trembling with nervousness as I checked my passbook. There, I was confronted with a reality I wished I could avoid. Just as I suspected, it was from our joint account. Mike and I had opened it after we got married to manage our finances. We saved for our future and paid for our living expenses from this account. But it was also the account used for Mike's frequent purchases of designer bags on his credit card. Even more shocking was the revelation that despite claiming to work overtime, Mike's salary hadn't increased at all. His company was known for being employee-friendly, so his salary should have gone up with overtime hours. But it hadn't changed. At that moment, everything clicked. His late returns home were because he was having an affair with Abby's mother. It was clear that Mike hadn't been working the extra hours he claimed. While I was going through a tough time being pregnant and unwell, he hadn't offered any support and instead engaged in an affair, leaving me deeply disappointed. One evening, while Mike was in the bath, I determinedly took his smartphone. Trying not to alert him, my hands trembled with tension as I entered the passcode. And just like that, the phone unlocked. Perhaps Mike had let his guard down, thinking my severe morning sickness had made me less vigilant. The realization that he had underestimated me fueled my growing anger even more. As I kept my composure, I checked the contents of the smartphone. In the chat app, there were clear exchanges between Mike and Abby's mother, confirming their affair. "I told my wife I have overtime so we can meet tonight," Mike had written. "Really? Can we meet tonight? I can't wait to see you." Abby's mother had responded with a string of heart emojis. If I still had strong feelings for my husband, witnessing such betrayal would have driven me to madness. But now that I no longer harbored any love for him, I was able to focus calmly on gathering evidence. Looking at their recent text messages, I discovered they were planning a trip. It was scheduled for a week, starting from the weekend, with the intention of enjoying various hikes. Of course, my husband hadn't informed me about this trip. I was curious to hear what excuse he'd give on the day of the trip, so I waited patiently. Finally, the morning of the trip arrived. Despite it being a holiday, my husband was busy with preparations from early in the morning. "Good morning. What's got you so busy this early?" I asked, catching him off guard. "Oh, well, you see. What are you doing up so early?" he replied, trying to deflect. I woke up hearing some noise. "What's with the suitcase? Are you going on a trip?" I pressed. I have a company trip for a week starting today. I thought I told you. Just wait. I'll buy you a nice souvenir, he said hurriedly, attempting to cover up. As if on cue, Kate woke up too. She seemed curious about what was happening, and, with a slightly dazed expression, asked her father, "Dad, what's happening? Are you leaving?" "He's going on a company trip. He'll bring back a souvenir, so let's look forward to it." "Got it? Can't wait for the souvenir." "Take care," I interjected, with a forced smile. With our smiles, my husband left the house with a wry smile of his own. After his departure, we looked at each other and burst into laughter. Dad's voice was shaking when he lied. Anyone could tell he was lying, Kate remarked between giggles. After sharing a good laugh, we began discussing our next steps. "Okay, I'm about to discuss something important. Listen carefully. I'm thinking of getting a divorce." "I believe it's crucial for you too," I said solemnly. Kate's response to the situation was mature beyond her years. She expressed her discomfort with having a father who cheated on me, and she empathized with Abby, her friend, who was likely going through a tough time too. Her concern for Abby's well-being showed her compassion and understanding. Abby's sudden disappearance and betrayal of her daughter's trust only fueled my determination for revenge. I felt strongly that there should be no compromise when it came to holding them accountable for their actions. With newfound motivation, I took decisive actions to protect myself and Kate. I canceled our credit cards to prevent my husband from spending any more money recklessly. I also transferred half of the savings from our joint account to my personal account to ensure a fair division of assets. We moved back to my parents' house, leaving behind the memories of our life with my husband. Kate's positive attitude during the move reassured me that we were making the right decision for our future. Discovering messages between my husband and Abby's mother, where they expressed their desire to be together, only solidified my resolve. I packed up my husband's belongings and sent them to Abby's mother's parents' house, along with the termination of our lease agreement. My husband's subsequent call, asking for money, only confirmed that my actions had hit their mark. Knowing that he couldn't use his credit card anymore brought me a sense of relief amidst the turmoil. Despite the challenges ahead, I felt empowered and ready to start a new chapter in my life, free from the betrayal and deceit of my husband and Abby's mother. It's easy to imagine that my husband's trip with his mistress was very tense for him. Despite his attempts to reach out, I ignored his calls, citing my severe morning sickness as the reason. 3 days later, I received another call from him, which I reluctantly answered. He was shocked to find the house empty and the lease terminated. "Why is the house empty? What's going on?" he demanded, his anger palpable. "Weren't you supposed to be on a trip for 7 days? Why are you back so soon?" I countered, revealing that I knew about his affair and had taken action accordingly. Realizing that I had found out about the affair and was divorcing him, he was visibly shaken. I ended the call and deleted all his contacts from my phone. With nowhere to go, my husband seemingly sought refuge at Abby's parents' house. There, Abby's mother faced severe reprimands from her husband and parents for her lies and affair. Both she and my husband were forced to sign divorce papers and pay compensation before being kicked out. Since returning to my parents' home, Kate and I have been living freely. My worries disappeared, and my morning sickness subsided, allowing me to return to work after my maternity leave. Kate enjoys spending time with her grandparents after school, and the divorce proceedings went smoothly thanks to the support of my lawyer and the ample evidence I had gathered. In order to secure my ex-husband's income, the divorce proceedings proceeded in my favor, allowing me to move forward with my life without the burden of his betrayal weighing me down. I demanded both compensation and child support payments from my ex-husband and sent a letter to his company, urging them not to let him resign. His boss, who was a married man with children, saw the letter and was furious. He negotiated with the company to deduct the compensation and child support payments from my ex-husband's salary. With his boss keeping a close eye on him, it seemed unlikely that he would be able to quit his job easily. My ex-husband was financially struggling because he had spent too much money on his mistress's lavish lifestyle. Losing his home, he was forced to live in a cheap company dorm, making it even harder for him to quit his job. Meanwhile, Abby and her father found peace. Abby accepted her parents' divorce and seemed to smile more compared to before. She told Kate that she genuinely enjoyed living with her father. Knowing that Abby was living a happy life brought genuine relief to my heart. Soon after, I gave birth to a lovely baby boy. The fact that my ex-husband couldn't hold my beloved son in his arms showed how foolish she had been. When Kate saw her adorable brother, she cheered with delight. Looking at both my beloved daughter and son's faces, I vowed in my heart to raise them well and provide them with the love and support they deserved.
I'm Eleanor, and I've been a doctor nearly as long as I've been Richard's wife. We had our ups and downs, but those 30 years flew by like they were nothing. Our house, big and cozy, was always filled with the sounds of life, especially when the boys were young. James and Oliver, our sons, were as different as night and day, yet they both brought their own kind of joy into our lives. Richard and I, both doctors, worked hard to build a comfortable life. We managed to buy a couple of apartments over the years, renting them out for some extra income. Life seemed set on a good path, until the day Richard came home looking pale and more serious than I'd seen in years. "Eleanor, we need to talk," he said, his voice grave as he dropped his medical bag by the door. "Had some tests done last week. The results, they came back. It's cancer, Eleanor." The months that followed were a blur of hospital visits, treatments, and endless waiting rooms. Richard fought hard, but the cancer was merciless. Watching the strongest man I knew wither away was torture. No amount of medical training prepares you for that. One evening, as we sat quietly in the living room, Richard took my hand. "Eleanor, if things don't go our way, you need to make sure everything's sorted with the boys. The will's all done. You'll be fine financially." Not long after, he was gone. The funeral was a somber affair. Family, friends, and colleagues, people came from all over to pay their respects. But it was the quiet at home after everyone left that hit me the hardest. Empty spaces Richard used to fill, his things just where he left them. It hurt to see, to remember. A few days post-funeral, I was in the kitchen trying to make sense of leftover food when James stormed in, his face all twisted up in worry and anger. Oliver trailed behind him, looking like he wanted to be anywhere but here. "Mom, we need to talk about Dad's will," James said, cutting straight to the chase as he always did. I sighed, setting down the cling film. "Yes, I know. Your father left everything to me. He wanted to make sure I was taken care of." James slammed his hand on the counter. "But what about me and Oliver? We're his sons. It's not right that we get nothing now." Oliver piped up, trying to smooth things over. "James, let's not jump into this so hot-headed. Mom's still grieving. We can sort this out without arguing." James shot him a glare. "Easy for you to say. You're not thinking about the future. I am." I leaned against the counter, feeling the weight of their stares. "Your father and I built this together. He trusted me to handle things. But I hear you, James. It's not my plan to cut you out." "So, what, then?" James said, crossing his arms, his voice rising a notch. "We just wait until, what? You think it's a good time to give us our share?" "James, watch your tone," I snapped, my patience fraying. "I am still your mother." Oliver stepped between us, his hands up like a referee. "Both of you, please. This isn't helping. Mom, maybe there's a middle ground here?" I nodded, rubbing my temples. "Okay, here's what we can do. The apartments your father and I invested in." "The ones downtown?" James interrupted. "Yes, those," I continued, shooting him a look that told him to zip it for a minute. "I was thinking, you each take one. They're yours to live in or rent out. And from the savings, let's say $25,000 each, to help you get started on whatever you need." James chewed on his lip, clearly doing the math in his head. And the rest of the stuff? The house, the money? That stays with me. For now. When I'm gone, it'll come to you, as per your father's wishes, I said firmly. James looked like he wanted to argue more, but Oliver nudged him. Let's think about this, man. It's a fair start. Mom's not leaving us in the cold. James finally nodded, tight-lipped. Fine. But I want this in writing, Mom. No more surprises. Of course, I agreed. We'll get everything documented properly. As they left the kitchen, I could hear Oliver hissing at James. Give her a break, will you? She's doing her best. James muttered something under his breath I couldn't catch, and I didn't really want to. As I washed up the dishes, I wondered if Richard could see us, and what he'd think. I hoped I was doing the right thing, but only time would tell. And time, that tricky thing, wasn't always a friend. It was a sunny afternoon, a rare kind that makes everything seem alright, when James brought Isabella over to meet me for the first time. They hadn't been dating long, but James was already head over heels. You could tell by the way he was fussing over her, which wasn't like him at all. They walked in, and right off the bat, Isabella had this air about her, like she owned the place. Dressed to the nines, she breezed into my living room with barely a hello, her eyes scanning everything. Nice place you've got here, she said, flipping her hair back as she sat down without waiting for an invitation. James was grinning like a fool beside her. I forced a smile, trying to be the good host. Thank you, Isabella. Can I get you anything? Coffee, tea? Coffee sounds lovely, she replied, then turned to James. Babe, make sure it's black, no sugar. James nodded and headed to the kitchen. That left me alone with her, sitting in my own living room, feeling like the guest. The silence was awkward until she broke it. So, James tells me you're pretty well off, she started, eyeing the decor. I'm used to a certain standard, you know? My parents made sure of that. That's good to hear, I said, not sure what else to add. James came back with the coffee and handed Isabella her cup. She took a sip and made a face. It's all right. Anyway, we've been discussing our future together. Planning ahead, you know? That's wise, I said, glancing at James, hoping he'd give me some clue about where this conversation was heading. Isabella set her cup down. Yeah, and speaking of planning, we were thinking about the wedding. You know I want something special, James has probably told you. I saw this place, perfect for a rehearsal dinner, but it's a bit pricey. It's about $30,000. I choked on my coffee. $30,000? Just for the rehearsal dinner? James jumped in. Mom, it's important to Bella. We want to start things off right. I put my cup down, feeling a storm brewing inside. Look, that's a lot of money for a dinner, Isabella. We need to be reasonable. Isabella's face hardened. Reasonable? James says you have the means. I don't see why we should compromise on something that important. James was nodding along with her, but I could see the unease in his eyes. He knew he was asking too much. I'm all for celebrating, I said, trying to keep my voice even. But $30,000 is beyond excessive. I can't justify that. Isabella stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm not used to compromising on my standards, Eleanor. I was clear with James that I expect a certain lifestyle. James tried to smooth things over. Mom, maybe we can find a middle ground? There's no middle ground on $30,000 for a dinner, James. That's final. I snapped, losing my patience. Isabella picked up her purse, glaring at me. Fine. If that's how it's going to be, then maybe we need to reconsider some things. They left soon after. I sat there, reeling from the encounter. The nerve of that girl, coming into my home, drinking my coffee, and telling me how to spend my money. It felt like a slap in the face, a wake-up call I wasn't ready for. I was out at the grocery store when James and Isabella decided to drop by again. By the time I got home, Oliver was awkwardly entertaining them in the living room. The atmosphere was tense, the kind that makes you want to turn around and leave, but it was my house, so I braced myself and walked in. Isabella, all dolled up as usual, handed me a list as soon as I set down my grocery bags. Eleanor, we thought a lot about the wedding gifts, and here's what we've settled on. I hope this will be easier for you to handle. I skimmed the list she first handed me. It was surprisingly sensible: kitchen appliances, some nice china, even a couple of pieces of furniture. This seems quite reasonable, I said, feeling a momentary relief. I think these are wonderful choices. Really? James looked at Isabella, a hopeful expression crossing his face. But just as I was about to discuss where we could buy these items, Isabella's expression changed abruptly. She gasped, "Oh no, this isn't right. Give that back." She snatched the list from my hands and rummaged through her purse, pulling out another sheet of paper. Here's the actual list. This new list was nothing like the first. It included an apartment, a luxury car, an exclusive vacation, and even diamond jewelry. My jaw dropped. Is this some kind of joke? Isabella didn't flinch. No joke, Eleanor. These are the gifts we expect. Only the best for our wedding. I stared at her, then at James, waiting for him to say something, anything to suggest he didn't agree with this madness. But he just stood there, looking between us, clearly conflicted but silent. I couldn't hold back. James, why are you letting her do this? You know this is unreasonable. Isabella cut in, her voice rising. This doesn't concern you, Eleanor. You just need to pay up and keep quiet. That's when Oliver stood up, his face set hard. That's enough, Isabella. You're not going to talk to our mom like that. This is her house, and you're way out of line. You need to leave. Now. The room was thick with tension as James and Isabella gathered their things. Isabella was muttering under her breath, clearly angry. This is ridiculous. We'll remember this. They left, and the door slammed shut behind them. Sitting down, I felt the weight of the whole situation pressing down on me. Oliver sat beside me, putting an arm around my shoulders. We'll figure this out, Mom. But you can't let them bully you into giving more than you can, or should. It's not right. He was right, of course. But as I sat there with my son, I couldn't help but worry about James. How had things gotten so out of hand? How could he not see what this was doing to our family? The silence that followed was filled with unsaid worries and fears for the future. I knew then that this was far from over. It was only going to get tougher from here. The weeks that followed were a constant barrage of phone calls from James. Each one was more demanding than the last, his tone desperate, almost frantic at times. Mom, you don't understand. I can't look poor next to Bella's family, he'd argue, his voice cracking with stress. You have the money. Why can't you just help me out here? I sat at the kitchen table, phone pressed against my ear, feeling a knot in my stomach. James, it's not about the money. It's about living within your means. Bella's expectations, you can't sustain that, not without going into serious debt. He'd scoff, his frustration boiling over. What do you know about it? I'm not going to live like a beggar. I need more from the inheritance, now. The demand stung. James, I've offered to cover half the wedding costs up to $15,000 and give a $5,000 gift. That's more than generous. Everything has to be agreed upon with me, though. No surprises. There was a pause, then a sharp laugh from him. That's nothing. You're just being stingy. You have $1 million sitting there. Why are you holding out on me? Because it's not just about the money, I replied, my patience wearing thin. It's about not feeding into this fantasy that's going to ruin you. He yelled now, loud enough that I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I don't need this. I'll handle it my way. Forget you. And then, just like that, the call stopped. Months passed in silence. I tried to busy myself with daily routines, trying not to worry about James, but the peace was short-lived. The phone rang one afternoon, and it was my sister-in-law, Anita. "Eleanor, I thought you should know." Anita's voice was hesitant, careful. "James is flying all the wedding guests to Hawaii. He sold his apartment to fund it. And he expects you to get there on your own. He mentioned you weren't interested in helping, so..." I hung up, a mix of anger and sorrow churning inside me. How could he be so reckless? Before I could process it all, Oliver came into the room, his expression grim. "Mom, there's something you need to hear." I recorded their conversation when they were sitting here in the living room. He handed me an audio recorder. I pressed play, and the voices of James and Isabella filled the kitchen. "James, your mom is just a nasty old woman with a fat wallet. We need to squeeze as much as we can out of her and then cut her off." James's voice responded, chillingly agreeable. "Whatever it takes, Bella. I'm not going to let her control us. If it comes down to it, I'll kick her out in her underwear." I turned off the recorder, my hands trembling. To hear my own son speak like that about me, his mother, it was too much. The room spun as I tried to comprehend the depth of his betrayal. Flying to Hawaii was a decision I didn't make lightly. Oliver was by my side, both of us tense but determined to face whatever awaited us. When we landed and approached the venue, I was taken aback by the sheer opulence of it all. Flowers everywhere, lights strung like stars across the evening sky, and music floating in the air. As we walked into the gathering, I spotted James and Isabella mingling with guests. They looked like a picture-perfect couple, all smiles and laughter. My heart ached to see my son so lost in this fabricated paradise. Before I could take another step towards them, Isabella spotted us. Her smile vanished, replaced by a scowl as she marched over, her high heels clicking angrily against the stone pathway. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed, stopping just inches from me, her voice loud enough to draw attention. "This is my day, and you're not welcome." I was stunned, but before I could respond, her parents, who had overheard, came over. Her father, a tall, stern-looking man, spoke first. "Isabella, that is no way to speak to your guest, much less to James' mother." His tone was harsh, a reprimand that made her cheeks flush with embarrassment. Her mother, looking equally appalled, turned to me with an apologetic smile. "Eleanor, please, come with us. Let's find you a place to sit." They guided us away, leading us to a table at the edge of the setup, clearly an afterthought with no proper setting. The ceremony started soon after, with speeches that felt hollow given the tension. Then, unexpectedly, I was handed the microphone. I stood, my legs shaky, but my resolve firm. "I came here today to wish my son and his new wife a happy future," I began, my voice steady despite the trembling inside. "But I also believe in honesty and integrity, something that's been sorely missing from the events leading up to this day." Isabella's face went from pink to red, her eyes glaring daggers at me. I was asked for money, time and again, in amounts that no reasonable person would find justifiable. When I couldn't meet these demands, I was threatened with separation from my family and future grandchildren. My voice cracked a bit, but I pressed on. Oliver, seeing my distress, stepped closer, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. I nodded at him, then turned on the audio recording he had made. Isabella's voice filled the air, cold and calculating, discussing how they would milk more money from me. James' voice agreed, saying he was prepared to leave me with nothing for the sake of his bride. The crowd murmured, the air thick with shock and disapproval. I turned off the recorder, the silence heavy. I gave my son an apartment and $25,000, and yet, it was never enough. Today, I'm making it clear, I will not be treated as an ATM or threatened. I am disowning James and Isabella. I wish them well, but from this day forward, I am choosing to remove myself from their lives. The reaction was immediate. Isabella screamed, her voice shrill and wild. "You've ruined my wedding. I curse you." After everything that had happened, coming back home was bittersweet. In the quiet, I made a decision that startled even me. I quit my job. I'd spent years healing others as a doctor, but now, it was time to heal myself and rebuild the life that the recent storms had scattered. Oliver, bless his heart, had just graduated from art college and was brimming with ideas and ambition. With the $25,000 I had given him, he opened his own tattoo parlor. It wasn't just any shop, it quickly became a place where art and skin met in stunning displays. Oliver poured his soul into his work, and it paid off. He started entering tattoo contests, and soon enough, his name was on every local's lips. Before we knew it, he was opening more locations, creating a network of salons that became a hotspot for tattoo enthusiasts. I'd watch him sketch late into the night, his dedication a stark contrast to the chaos his brother had chosen. "You're doing amazing, Ollie," I'd say, pride swelling in my chest. It was during these calm months that James reappeared. One afternoon, he showed up at the door, his eyes tired, his shoulders slumped, so different from the ambitious, sharp man he once was. "Mom, I need to talk," he said, not waiting for an invitation to sit. His voice was weary, a far cry from the demanding tone I'd grown accustomed to. I sighed, motioning for him to continue. "What is it, James?" "It's Bella, she's driving me insane. Wants more and more, nothing's ever enough. I got a second job, but it's still not enough for her." His words were desperate, but they couldn't erase the past so easily. "James, I warned you. I told you, living like that, with someone like her, it's unsustainable." He rubbed his face, frustration clear. I know you did, but I thought." His voice trailed off, hopelessness taking the place of explanation. "Thought what? That money would just appear because you wanted it to?" My tone was harsh, but years of pent-up frustration made it hard to soften it. "Look at your brother. He started with the same amount and made something of himself without stepping on others." James bristled. "Yeah, well, not everyone's like Oliver, are they? I have rights to the inheritance too, remember? And when you're gone, it'll come to me." That was the last straw. "Get out, James," I said, my voice cold, resolute. "And don't come back. Not this time. You chose your path." His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he might argue more. But then he turned and walked out, the door slamming shut behind him. As I stood in the silence that followed, Oliver came downstairs, having heard the last part of our exchange. "Are you okay, Mom?" I nodded, wrapping my arms around him. "I am now. Thanks to you. Let's just focus on the good we can do, on the life we can build." He hugged me back, his presence a comforting assurance that not all was lost. In that moment, I knew that despite the heartaches, the journey was still worth it. We had each other, and that was enough to keep moving forward. After the storm had passed with James, our home settled into a calm I hadn't felt in years. It was during this quiet period that Oliver brought someone special home. Her name was Sarah, and she was everything Isabella wasn't: kind, humble, and genuinely caring. As the weeks turned into months, their relationship grew stronger, and soon they announced their engagement. The wedding, unlike the extravagant affair that was James, was a simple, heartfelt ceremony in our backyard. Flowers from the garden, homemade decorations, and a small group of close friends and family made the day perfect. During the reception, I pulled Oliver aside. "You've chosen a wonderful woman," I said, my voice thick with emotion. He squeezed my hand. "I learned from the best," he replied, giving me a knowing look. Life moved quickly after that. They sold the apartment I had given Oliver, adding a bit of their savings to buy a small, cozy house just a few miles away. One sunny afternoon, while we were having tea in their new living room, Sarah shared some news. "Eleanor, we're expecting twins," she announced, her eyes shining with excitement. I nearly dropped my cup, overwhelmed with joy. "Twins? Oh, my goodness, that's wonderful." Oliver beamed, his pride evident. "We wanted you to be the first to know. We're really happy, Mom." "Twins," I repeated, letting the words sink in. "Grandchildren." It was a new chapter, one I was eager to start. As for James, news from him was sparse. The last I heard, he had divorced Isabella. She had taken nearly everything in the split, leaving him to start over in another city. Despite the pain he had caused, it hurt to know he was out there somewhere, struggling because of his choices. One evening, as I sat looking through old photo albums, Oliver came and sat beside me. He noticed a picture of James and me from years ago. "Do you ever hear from him?" he asked softly. I shook my head. "No. After everything, he's chosen his path, and I have to respect that, even if it breaks my heart." Oliver put an arm around me. "He's still my brother, Mom. Maybe one day, he'll come around." "Maybe," I agreed, not really sure if I believed it. "But for now, we have plenty to keep us busy, especially with those twins on the way." Oliver chuckled. "Yeah, you're about to be the busiest grandma in town." We both laughed, the sound filling the room with warmth. Despite the past, despite the mistakes and heartaches, this moment, here with Oliver, felt like everything was exactly as it should be. Life was moving on, and so were we, with new hopes and dreams just on the horizon.